he didn't go to sales immediately because there are other things that he does that leads to sales. So that's more like an effort against impact. So when you want to measure performance, you want to measure your effort, but not your effort alone. You also want to measure your impact. Because I can come and maybe as a BDM in this year, maybe he has sold just one land. And he's shouting, no, I'm working. I shot 5,000 videos. I brought 3,000 clients to site. All that effort without selling. Well, depending on your orga, they can tell you to pack your bag and go. Somebody else can say, he's trying now. Let's see how we can help him to improve. Maybe he has an issue with closing deals, and so on. Okay, so I think that's good. So yeah, performance management is about continuously helping yourself to grow and align your efforts with the objectives of the organization and ultimately driving better performance. So generally, performance management to you would be about you firstly aligning yourself to the organization's goals. And I think that was something that was a little bit missing from what everybody said, in the sense that maybe, I stand to be corrected, maybe when you came in, you are not given a job description, you are not given, maybe you didn't have an onboarding session where they told you, okay, as customer service, these are the things that are expected of you to do. And I want to believe that those things that would be given to you as this is your job description would be an offshoot of the organization's goals. So we can't have a goal to sell and then selling is not part of the job description for somebody in that organization. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yes. I'll take it again. So PWAN Champion can't have a target or have a goal. Maybe at the beginning of the year, we had said we want to sell 10 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion. And then in all the staff we have, none of them has a job description to sell. So every job description is just an offshoot of the broad goal of the organization. Each department has its own sub or smaller goal that is still under that broad goal. And then each staff under each department has their own goals. So your goal must align with your department's goal, and obviously your department's goal must align with the organization's goals. So performance actually starts from what does the organization really want to do, but that might not really be your concern, probably more for management. But then there must be an alignment. So maybe why this is also important for you is you have to understand the goals so that you are not running in. Who has seen the video of? There's this video came out when Buhari became president. So it was a relay race with I think small, like in a school, small children, So they said maybe Obasanjo was the first person, and the committee was like, Obasanjo passed the baton to Yar'Adua. Then Yar'Adua passed to Jonathan. So they were all running, like relay, they are running this way. Then Jonathan now gives the baton to Buhari. Buhari now started running in the opposite direction. There's effort, there's some results, but it's results in the opposite direction. At the end of the day, they will encourage him, you have tried. He will sweat, he would have expended energy, but he didn't understand the goal of that race, So you need to understand where the organization is going to. What is measured is what gets done. So let me give us this illustration. How many of us here have maybe a help that comes to clean for us at home? Or to wash? Okay, yeah. We probably all take our clothes to the dry cleaners for one thing or the other, right? So maybe your dry cleaner is one of these guys that just does anyhow, wishy-washy type of job. And then maybe as a guy, you have a collar that probably gets stained much more than any other part of. And so even if you use a machine, the person might still need to put extra attention to the collar. So maybe you get your clothes back and you don't necessarily check. You just, as it comes, you feel like, it smells nice, smells fresh, and then you wear it. Then one day you happen to check the collar, and it's looking like they've not washed this collar in about, a couple of months. And immediately you call your dry cleaner, and then you fire for the guy. What do you mean? I'm paying lucky price for you, and you're doing this type of nonsense job for me. Most likely, the next time you give him clothes to wash, he may not even wash any other part in the clothes, but that collar, it go white. All the stain will be taken away. So that's really what we're trying to say by what is measured is what gets done. So if we are human beings, that's the honest truth. If they don't put eye for our body, we will do what we want, or we will do it the way we want to do it, when we want to do it, when we feel like doing it. And so that's why measuring, or like I said, putting it in our own perspective, we also having that mindset of, I need to perform. So even if nobody is watching you, it's like you are watching yourself. I'm sure you probably heard this before. You're running against yourself. So I want to be a better version of myself tomorrow than I am today. So even if nobody is choking eye inside my work, I want to make sure that if anybody comes tomorrow, I'm not the same person that they met yesterday in the positive direction, obviously. So what is measured is what gets done. Another example is maybe even some of us, when we were maybe younger, still staying with our parents, and you are cleaning the house every day. Then one morning, your mom just decides to say, let me even come or maybe you wake up late, and then she now cleans instead of you. And then she starts going to places that you didn't know they could reach. And then most likely, the next time you're cleaning the house again, you will remove the chair, you throw it to one side so that you can sweep the under of the. So yeah, and then maybe some of us here might become, I think Lim was mentioning one name, I've forgotten the name he mentioned. Director. So maybe when you need to become a director, you might have people under you. Definitely you have to monitor what they're doing, or else one day you wake up and you'll be out of business. Why is this important? If you understand your role and expectations, you perform better. I think I've sort of belabored that point already today. If you understand your rules, your objectives, your goals, you will definitely perform better. There's a popular saying, if the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So if you don't even know why, and that thing, it actually happens a lot. We work with organizations, and then you find out that most of the staff do not even understand their job description. And then a guy is shouting every day, my staff are not performing, they are this, and I'm like, okay, these people that are shouting, they don't even know what they are supposed to do. So many times, the solution is just to have a meeting, carry the job description, read it back to them, get them to ask questions. What don't you understand here? And by the time you solve all that, you find out that the person starts to perform compared to how they were before. Clear goals and regular feedback helps you to stay focused, motivated, and relevant. So part of what performance management is meant to do is to give you regular feedback. Typically, appraisals, we all know what appraisal is, have we? Because it's like it's the mother of promotion, mother of increments. It's after appraisal that you can start shouting, I perform well, increase my money. But then usually appraisals are either once a year or twice a year, usually. So maybe after 6 months, then at the end of the year, we do another one. Yeah. But the truth is, we advise our clients to do appraisals. So I won't call it appraisal, but to measure performance on a more regular basis, which is maybe at the end of every month, at the end of every quarter. Because, so for example, we have a client who is, it's a school in Aja, a primary school. So the owner of the school was telling me a story about, I'm trying to remember the story, but just imagine a teacher that is teaching nonsense for a whole 2 terms, which is 6 months. So maybe the teacher joins in the beginning of the term now, I think, which is July, August, right? So school resumes in August or September. Yeah, school resumes in September. So imagine the teacher does first term, But because you are waiting for 6 months to measure, the teacher has taught the children nonsense for the first term. Second term teaches another set of nonsense. And then you are now measuring, maybe part of the measurement is to interact with the students, and then you ask the students a very simple question. But imagine the teacher has been teaching nonsense for 6 months. It would take a lot more work to undo that nonsense from the child's head. Or imagine it's a parent that picks up that nonsense at home. And the way parents are, they are very good for negative referral. They say, don't carry your child to that school again, no. You know, and so one of the things we recommend to our clients, and possibly to you as a person, is to have a way of measuring your performance on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, so that even before the organization says, we want to do our appraisal, you already know your score. You know it's possible. That before, because especially if goals are clearly spelled out at the beginning of the year. So imagine you're a customer service person and you have a target to because for sales as well, sales is a bit of maths. Maybe if you call, like Mr. Ezekiel will always teach us, depending on your own personal conversion, your conversion can be 10%. And so what that means is if you're a salesperson and you want to convert, let's use number of clients, you want to convert 40 clients to sell, you need to speak to at least 400 people because your conversion is 10%. So if you're a salesperson and you know that you have a target to sell to 40 people, you can set a target for yourself. If I need to reach 40 people, if I need 40 conversions, I need 400 people, prospects to speak to. So you can give yourself a target like Mr. Ezekiel does for his team. Maybe if you have a month to do this, if you do 10 per day, in 30 days, you will have spoken to just 300 people. So that means you can't do 10 calls per day. So you need to do maybe something like 15 calls per day, which takes you to about 450 for that month. So if by 15th of the month, which is like half of the month, you have spoken to 150 people, you know that there's trouble. Do you understand? Is the mathing? Yes, sir. So these are simple ways that you can measure yourself based on whatever has been given to you. So from the aspect of the customer service, you have a number of calls to make, or you have a response time. That's another KPI that can be given to somebody in the customer service place. You have a response time of at least 30 minutes for every DM, or 1 hour for every call or whatever. And then you notice that on average, you are responding to messages after 2 hours. You just know that you are standing on one leg. And if they do an appraisal, most likely you'll be out of the door because you're not performing based on what has been set for you in your job description. A study shows that employees who receive regular feedback are 3.5 times more likely to be higher performers. So that illustration I gave is primarily for you to be able to give yourself feedback and give yourself brain. That, oh boy, if I continue this way, I'll beg for rent next year. Nobody will beg for rent in Jesus' name. So we have a performance management cycle that spans from planning, monitoring, reviewing, and rewarding. So planning is the aspect where we do all the JD, job description, the KPI, So in your planning stage, you want to ask all your questions. So maybe you're coming into an organization or you're starting a year afresh. And then we have this sort of meeting. Management is saying these are the goals, these are the targets for the year. During that phase is like the planning phase, and you want to start asking questions. What exactly is expected of me? If this happens, what do I do? If I can't do this one, what do I do? So in that planning phase, you set your performance goals, And you want those goals to be goals that challenge you personally. One of the easiest ways to not perform or to be lazy is to perform goals that mentally, you know that if I wake up, so so imagine you had a target to sell one land as a salesperson. You could have probably just sleep the whole month, and then on the 29th of the month, because you know that one land small. So there's a way it puts you in a space of just being lax and relaxed. Whereas if you had a target that was, you know that this target I have to work to achieve it, the likelihood is that you'll be a higher performer than if you had. And then so the sad part of that other illustration is that you may feel like, oh, one land. If I start calling people by 28, I will see land to sell. Unfortunately, you might not see land to sell, you know. But if you had started putting in effort from maybe the first of the month, you are calling people as if your life depends on it, you know, you will get the results that you're looking for. Then monitoring has to do with our KPIs and measuring it. So like I said, you want your measurements to be systematic. You want it to be, as a person, as a staff, you want to measure your KPI, even if your organization is doing 6 months or they are doing 1 year. You want to be able to measure your own KPI so that if you need help, you cry out before that 6 months. So maybe you have known that you have a particular, maybe you have 10 billion to sell. By half of the year, you have sold just 1 billion. Whereas by half of the year, you should be going close to 4.5, you know, 5 billion, 6 billion. So that's the time you want to cry out for help that, Oga, please help me. I don't know what's going on. People are not buying. Because if you wait till that 6-month period, it may be too late. And like Mr. Ezekiel said, that will not be our portion. Reviewing. So reviewing is when you can review personally, but then as the organization, that's at our 6 months mark or our 1 year mark. We review, we look at your performance based on your KPIs, and then management and maybe HR and maybe your HOD, they will sit down on your matter, they will have tea, and they will say this one, sack, this one, improve, this one, increase, promote, you know, but all dependent on how we perform. And then whatever they decide is what now feeds into the rewarding. Rewarding can be positive or negative. You can have positive reward if you perform well, and you can have negative reward if you don't perform well. So this is more for management, but it can also help you, which is setting SMART goals. One of the problems that a lot of organizations have is that they don't set SMART goals. I'm sure we all know what SMART is. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So every goal you set for yourself must be specific. What that means is it's speaking to a particular thing. In fact, in some school of thought, you would hear things like if you're formulating a KPI, there shouldn't be anything like "and" inside it. So for example, so let's say this is a KPI for somebody, which is call 50 realtors. And so this "and" there is sort of like showing that you want to combine two things together in one KPI. Some people will say, don't put the "and." Leave call 50 realtors as one KPI. And then this one that you want to put as "and," put as a separate one under it. So sometimes you need to be that specific in what you're measuring. And then it has to be measurable. And so what we use, this measurable is a big problem. Because sometimes we work with industries that their goal or their outcome, sometimes they are hard to measure. And if something is hard to measure, it gives room for vagueness. It gives room for subjectivity. So that's when you hear things like, "But I performed." But a guy is saying you did not perform. But then because what was set as the KPI was not something that we could measure, HR cannot defend you because it's your word against management's word. But then if it's something that we can, for example, call 50 realtors, you can measure it 50. Once you can show that you have called 50 realtors, you have performed or you have performed on that particular KPI. But something like maybe make customers happy. How do I determine whether I have made them happy or not? And then, even that make customers happy, is it 100% of the customers that I'm supposed to make happy? What if a customer, I heard one of you was talking to somebody, I think the person's budget is lower than, the person is not here. There was one of you was talking to someone and they were saying that, if you want to live in Naija, you must increase your budget. So that customer might not be happy because his budget does not enter house in Naija. But then that cannot be used against that person. But if that guy calls the CEO and he says he's not happy, this and that, if we don't dig deeper, that singular event can be used against that guy as you're not performing. And the way bosses, HODs, supervisors are, they can be emotional people. So on that spot, he can just hammer on that thing. And then anytime he's looking at that staff, he just has that image of, this guy is not a good staff because of what that person has said to him. So you want to, as much as possible, clarify. So, most of the people, they will do KPI, they will give you, they say, read it before you sign or read it before you return. We will not read it. We'll just say, I fully understand, and you return it back to HR. When they're now asking you, oh yeah, this one, have you done it? I say, I did not know. So you need to look at the document properly. You need to review it. You need to read it. Make sure that what is inside, you understand. If there's anything I don't understand, you ask question, And then achievable, like I said, for goals, you want your goals to just be slightly above what you believe you can achieve. Slightly above, just tintiny, not so much. And then you want it to be relevant. Relevant means it's in line with the organizational goal. And then it's time bound, very important. Time bound means you know exactly how many months or how many days that you have to achieve a particular thing. So if your KPI says by the end of first quarter, you should have sold a particular amount of property or made a particular amount of money. If Oga comes to you by the end of the first month, you can tell him, sir, don't worry. By the end of March, I would have sold. So just relax. And some people work like that. Some people feel like, okay, I have 3 months. So I have 3 months to sell 30 million. That 30 million, it can come 10 million per month. Sometimes it can come 0, 0, 30. Sometimes it can come 10, 20, 0. So it can come in any, form or way. But as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you have confidence in that. Now, every KPI should have these 4 things. The job responsibility. So, okay. So let's put it like this. So we have the job responsibility. Then you have the KPI itself. Then you have how to measure. And then you have, let's say, how to measure. And then you have the frequency of measurement. Okay. Recruits 5 PBO, right? Yeah. PBO in a week. So a KPI here would be something like most likely it will be similar to what you have under the job because this is a specific job responsibility. So the KPI could be something like how many PBO recruited in a week. So how do we measure it? Maybe everybody you recruit, there's a place you document it. So it could be as easy as check, documentation, where the documentation is happening. And then frequency of measuring will probably be every week. For you, management can say they will check it by the end of 6 months. That 6 months, you would have had to have done 5 times, I think about 4 times 6, 20, like, so 5 times 24. Yeah. And then, so this would be a typical KPI tool that you would develop for yourself dependent on the job responsibility. And so the way it should be is each job responsibility should have a KPI attached to it. So if you have on your JD 20 different job items or job responsibilities that you're doing, each of those job responsibilities must have their own KPI. And the KPI must have how to measure. Like I said, this is not really your work. It's probably HR's work, management's work to come up with how to measure these things. But it's also good for you to know so that you can also be measuring by yourself. And then, because usually when we do our appraisals, you have a place where you do self-assessments. And this is what would determine your self-assessment. So maybe you say, okay, maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, they give themselves 5. And then when you're not asking them, how did you come about that 5? Then you say, you can't defend it. So you have to be able to document your own stuff as well. And then you saw how to measure frequency of measurements. So we have different appraisal methods. We have 360-degree feedback. And this one involves everybody else around you giving an appraisal of you. So if I was going to do a 360 evaluation of him, everybody here would give feedback about him. So how is his performance? So maybe if you work with him on a team, and maybe he's the kind of person that when they give 2 of you work, you already know that it's only you that will do it. You know, so that 360-degree feedback is a chance for you to give your own feedback about him. But I'm sure a lot of us, you know, do paddy so that they will not say it's the people that the village people sent to affect him. And then we have self-assessment, like I said, and that would be based on, so I will show us a sample of what the KPI document, what the appraisal document looks like, because you have different things we measure, which is the organizational goal and objective. I think we also look at the behavior. So it's not just about your JD, we also look at your behavior. And under behavior, you have stuff like, does the person come early? Is the person following dress code? Is the person, yeah, so those are the things we have in that aspect. And then when feedback comes during an appraisal, don't take it as criticism, but take it as an avenue to develop yourself. There's a popular saying that your most angry client is your best client because they will show you the areas where you need to improve and become a better person. So every appraisal, at the end of every appraisal, you know, hopefully it's not an appraisal that takes you out of the door. Once you're still within the organization, there's feedback that comes. And instead of seeing that feedback as only me, you know, and some of us sometimes feel that way in an organization, that I can never get, like, I never seem to get anything done right. Every time it's always me, it's always me, it's always me. But the truth is, if you can implement whatever feedback, even from an angry person, or somebody who doesn't like you, feedback is still feedback. And if you can take it and take it out of the box of somebody criticized me to the box of this person just wants me to become a better person, and take that feedback, it makes you a better person, you know, all around. And peradventure, you leave the organization to another organization, you are a better person in that place because you have received feedback that has made you better. So yeah, this is an example of an appraisal document. So you have the employee name, the period of review, date of resumption, date of last promotion, job designation, current status, and then you have summary, which is the core functions, work style, performance, and behavioral competence. Each of those focus of measurements have their own weightings. So the core function, which is what we actually employed you for, we didn't employ you to be a good person, although if you're a good person, we are happy, you know. So that's why you notice that the core function has a higher rating than work style, performance, and behavioral competence. And so, okay, then you have the rating grades. If you score above 90, then we would say you are a high performer. If you score between 75 to 89, then we say, yeah, you did well, which is good performance. And then if you are grade B, which is 60 to 74, you have met the requirements, which is not a good place to be because it's a bit shaky. You want to be at least in the 75 to 89 or in the above 90. And then between 50 to 59, that is average performance. That person, we can advise that let's try and put 1 or 2 measures in place and watch that person for another 2 months, 3 months. Maybe that person would actually improve and begin to perform. But then if you're below 50, then sometimes, it may be hard to recommend that person stays in the organization. But then let me talk about the performance quadrant, which is, if I remember clearly, we have will, and then we have won't, then we have can, and then can't. So, yeah, so no, this should be the other way. So you want to be here, which means you have the ability. Can means I can do something. But the fact that I can do it doesn't mean I will do it. So as a staff, you want to be in the quadrant of can and will, which means I have the ability and I also have the motivation to do it. So definitely this person is probably 90, 75 to 89. Then the 60 to 74 is most likely somebody who is in maybe can and won't. So this person has ability, but then you have to force this person to work. If you don't cajole them, if you don't micromanage them, if you leave that person for 1 year, the person will just be collecting salary without working. So depending on whether the person is in the place of can and won't, or the person can be in the place of can't and will. So this person doesn't necessarily have the skills, but then the person, they work. So that person can make 5,000 calls and convert nothing. But at least we can see that this person is making some sort of effort. So the willingness is there. It will not be an issue of this can't. Can we make it can? Can we improve? Can we have a performance improvement plan that would develop that person's skills to a level where, okay, so he can make the calls and he can now also close, which is also important for his role. Then if you are here, there's problem. Can't and won't. So you don't have motivation and you don't have skill. Serious village people is chasing that person. So then, okay, so under section 1, we have business goals and objectives. So under that section, we would have your core job function. So like your JD would be outlined in this first part of your business goals and objectives. So under in front of each of the business, in front of each of your job descriptions or your KPIs, you would rate yourself. And the rating is on top. You have 2 for above average, 1.5 for good, 1 for average, and 0.5 for below average. So if you believe that in timely communication on all activities, you are a high performer, you can give yourself 2. But then your team lead would also rate you. And maybe the head of that team lead or maybe the head of that whole department would also rate you. And then we compare and contrast. If you gave yourself 2 and your team lead gave you 0.5, and then the last person even said, this person is not even 0, it's even 0. 0 is not part of the rating, but I'll give this person 0. You now need to defend yourself that, Oga, how did you get your own 2? So the thing is, in that kind of instance, it might be an issue of the person doesn't understand what he's supposed to do. Because for someone to give himself 2 and his boss is giving him 0, then there's a disconnect somewhere, or the person is just fooling around in the organization. Then the second one you have is work style performance, which talks about the quality of the work. So you might get work done in time, but are you getting it done well? That's another thing that we also want to look at. Then outstanding delivery, timely delivery, and ability to work under pressure, depending on what is in your job description. This will vary from organization to organization or from staff to staff. Then you have behavioral competence, job knowledge, stuff like professionalism, communication, personal development. and so on and so forth. So in terms of professionalism, are you professional? I think I saw a video of an airline owner who sat in he was the owner of the airline, but I think he disguised himself and then sat as a passenger and gave the air hostess a tough time. Very tough time. She would give and say he doesn't want. She should bring another one. And lo and behold, the lady was 100% professional. And then the guy took off his disguise, and right there and then he told the lady that she was going to get promoted, and so on and so forth. So those are things that we also want to measure. You might not be sure. Your guy might have called you before, and you don't know he's the one. Maybe he called you to another number. And the way you responded, he has taken note of it. And then there's the aspect of recommendations as well, like I said earlier, which is the part of reviewing. So we recommend this person should be promoted, or this person should be given a bonus because of outstanding performance, or this person should go through another 3 months with a performance improvement plan, or this person should be kicked out of the door, or sometimes you change department. So it's like, this department this person is not really performing. I say, okay, let's try this person in admin, or let's try this person in customer service. Let's try this person in sales. Let's try this person in accounting. And sometimes it works. Somebody who was underperforming in a department becomes a high flyer in another department. So, it varies depending on, and then sometimes, if it's something of, we've done appraisal 2-3 times and then the performance has been consistently low, usually in those instances, the person would have to go. So 3 things that as a staff you want to be doing. You want to be documenting your activities, documenting your successes, have your own scorecard. Like I said, you want to be able to know on the day of appraisal, you want to have confidence to go for your appraisal, because even you yourself have been doing some sort of appraisal for yourself over the year. So one of our clients, they are a engineering service company. They service all the breweries in Nigeria. In fact, they service some breweries outside Nigeria as well. And the lead engineer was speaking to the other engineers and saying to them that him personally, he knows the amount of quotes he has sent out. So quotes is like their own sales activity. Let's put it that way. So he personally knows the amount of sales quotes he has sent out this year. So that if, like I said, sometimes Oga may be emotional and say, you are not performing. You're going to bring out documents. Oga, this year, only me, I have sent out quotes in this amount. And it's fact. It's not that he is cooking books. Then HR can fight for you. But if you don't have that type of personal documentation, or there's no proper way of documenting this thing as an organization, then you're on your own. Document your successes, have your scorecard. There's something my boss always talks about. She calls it a brag sheet. And the truth is, this helps you as a person as well, in the sense that I remember, because I've been doing this for about 5 years. So I remember one time we had a client reach out to us that they needed someone to facilitate a training in Rwanda for an oil company. And then they said, my boss said, the money they want to pay is not enough for me. So you can go. I said, I have not done anything, man. Who am I? And then she did a breakdown of every training, every strategy session I had done in the space of that 5 years. And I did not believe that it was me that did all that work. So the truth is, if you don't document the work you're doing, you will just be moving through life. You won't know your worth. You won't be able to defend certain things you are asking for from management. So you want to have a systematic way where you personally, document your own successes, your activities, and what you're doing. So frequent feedback, this is coming from management's perspective. Frequent feedback, like I said, you don't want to wait for 6 months before you are telling somebody that, oh boy, you're not performing. It might be, well, maybe in this industry, the impact might not be so much. But then in other industries, imagine having a doctor that doesn't know what he's doing for 6 months. The other illustration I gave was a teacher. A teacher has taught 2 terms. And in those 2 terms, he's been teaching nonsense. So if as an organization, you wait for 6 months before you now start noticing those things, the damage that may have been done might be so much that to even repair it might cost you more than if you had just checked certain things at the beginning or in the middle before we got to the 6 months period when we would have, the whole appraisal activity. Then coaching. So for example, somebody who is in the aspect of willing but can't, this person needs coaching. The person needs to be coached to move from, because the person has the willingness to work, but just doesn't have the ability. So coaching, trainings would help that person move up the ladder from a can't position to a can position. So handling performance issues and turning them around, spot issues early. Spot it early. Like I said, as a staff, you have a target of a particular amount for the year, and then by half of the year, you've not made 20% of that target. That's when you start crying for help. I need help. Oh. You carry phone, you call Mr. Ezekiel. Mr. Ezekiel, please send me that 2 hours session on on marketing so that I can brush up. So you want to catch things, you want to spot it early. Then you turn performance around using PIPs. I've mentioned that severally during this discourse. We call them performance improvement plan. It's a performance improvement plan where either you train, you coach. Sometimes we do peer-to-peer mentoring. So there's somebody who is a high flyer. So you tell the person, carry this, your colleague, he's not doing well. Work with him, share ideas with him. If you have any issue, don't come and meet me, go and meet him, because this person is already depicting the image of who we want that staff to be, and then support and then empower. So one thing that is also very important for me to mention here is that sometimes performance is not primarily an issue of the staff. It could be an environment issue. When I say environment, I mean the organization. So imagine you are a salesperson for a high-ticket product or a high-ticket brand, and then management hasn't provided you with the necessary tools to portray or to sell that high-ticket product that you're selling. So, okay, let me give an example. Like what Mr. Ezekiel was saying. So imagine Mr. Ezekiel wants to close a deal worth 500 billion, and then he sends Bisola with a taxi or with Marwa to go and close that deal. And then Bisola doesn't close the deal. And then he now blames Bisola, that it's Bisola's fault that she didn't close the deal. Whereas empowerment wasn't there. So we need to support and empower our staff or our people in any way we can to help them to perform better. Things they need. So there's something we usually do when we have sessions with organizations. We ask the staff, do you have the tools that you need to do your job? As little as company line, company phone can be a major tool that is affecting somebody from doing their job, So in conclusion, performance management is an important tool to help us to become better individuals and to help the organization as a whole to achieve its goal. Setting ambitious but achievable goals, providing continuous feedback, and recognizing progress would help us to reach our full potential. Seek feedback, take ownership. I think I would dwell a bit on the ownership part. Many times, so like the other side of the coin to when I was saying management should provide the necessary tools, as a staff or as a team member, you also want to take ownership. It's not everything you wait for management to do for you. In fact, it's one of the problems of, I don't want to say poor people, but some poor people in Nigeria. We're waiting for someone to do everything for us. The road in your street is bad. You are calling Buhari, Tinubu. Whereas we can come together as a community, put money together and fix that road for ourselves. Tinubu is not living on your streets. Neither is Jonathan or Obasanjo. You know, so you want to take ownership. You want to build yourself personally. You know, you want to, like what Mr. Ezekiel was saying, you want to build yourself to the level that you remain relevant in whatever you're doing. I think he gave the illustration of somebody somewhere who is doing a course in LBA, or LBS rather, not, well, LBA as well, is doing a course in LBA or LBS, and then happens to meet one of your guys somewhere and they just click because the person has developed, but nothing stops you from also taking that course. Nothing stops you from developing yourself to that level where you can now say, even me, I'm chilling with the big boys. Even me, I'm now calling, you know, big things and big shots. So yeah, I think, okay, I think I have one video that I want us to watch. Okay, I can. No, so don't worry. Let's just watch the video. No need. The visual speaks for itself. So this is a company called Struggle & Co. Incorporated. So as we're watching, we can be placing them in the different quadrants. What do you think? Okay, so, yep, so I think, exactly.